We're inching ever closer to the start of the 2020 MLB season. And as we're gearing up for baseball to finally start, I want to bring in CBS Chicago sports anchor Luke Stuckmeyer for his thoughts on the shortened season this year. Luke, how's it going?
Yeah, it's going well. I'm finally excited to see some baseball. It looks like it's really going to happen.
It looks like it's really going to happen, and we're only a couple weeks away. But as we all know, it's going to be dramatically different this year than in years past. And one way that that'll be the case is the shortened 60-game season. So how do you think that's going to affect both the Cubs and the White Sox chances to contend this year?
Well, I think if you're asking which team does it benefit, I think it benefits the Cubs. There's no way to really know the answer to that, but I would say the Cubs. They have more veteran players, and David Ross just addressed this with the media recently, saying he believes that veteran players will be able to deal with the adversity. They've just been through it more times. They haven't been through exactly this situation, but they've been through strange things that have happened through their career and been able to deal with it. Baseball players are creatures of habit. I think a veteran player can deal with it better than a young squad like the White Sox. If I'm a White Sox fan, the one thing I'm concerned about isn't necessarily their chances this year. It's whether or not these young players, some of the best young players in all of baseball, are able to develop the way they have been previously. Will 60 games be enough for Eloy Jimenez to continue the progress he's been making? Will it be enough for Luis Robert to become the player they expect him to be? It's more about, will this stunt the growth of some of these young players for the White Sox?
And Luke, another change that we're experiencing this year is MLB teams are only going to be playing against their regional division and the opposing league's regional division. One reason for that is it's going to help limit the team's travel during the COVID pandemic. So how do you think that only playing in the AL Central and NL Central, how is that going to work in either of these teams' favor in that regard?
I do think it works, again, in the Cubs' favor. The Cubs are traveling the second fewest miles throughout the season of any team in Major League Baseball. The Brewers are number one. Also on this schedule, I think the American League Central is maybe a 2 or 3 team race. The rest of the division, not so great. Whereas on the flip side, I think the White Sox have one of the toughest schedules in all of baseball. If the young players are up to it, they're really going to prove something over 60 games here, because I think the National League Central, from top to bottom, might be the best division in baseball. The Pirates are certainly the lowest rung on the ladder, but they're still a pretty good team too, and the Reds might be one of the most improved teams in baseball.
The season hasn't started yet, and you just started kind of talking about rankings here before the season begins, but I want to ask you if you had a bold prediction on who you think is going to make the playoffs from the AL and NL Central, who would it be?
I'll give you 2 teams from the National League Central first. I think it's the Cubs and Reds, and if I had to pick a strange team, I would say it's the Reds. I don't know if enough people around Major League Baseball realize what they have added in the offseason. I think the Reds are for real. Whether or not that will play out over 60 games, we're about to find out. I think it's the Reds and the Cubs. I would never count out the Cardinals in anything. Having grown up in the Chicago area, Cubs fans know St. Louis is never out of it. On the flip side, if I'm a Sox fan, I think they're right in it. I think it's the Twins number 1, White Sox number 2. Can the White Sox young players live up to the hype of what they've been showing leading up to this point? If they can and get off to a good start, they might be able to make a run at the Twins and put the pressure on Minnesota. It's going to be real tough to win a wild card out of that division because the American League is so loaded. So I think you have to win the division. I think it's really only the Twins and White Sox, maybe an outside chance for the Indians.
Finally, one more change I want to discuss for the 2020 MLB season is the fact that they're going to be playing all these games with no fans in the stands. So is it really going to feel like baseball, especially for the players, without crowds cheering them on?
Katie, the obvious answer is no. It's not going to be just like normal baseball. This is going to be the strangest Major League Baseball season ever. For teams that didn't make the playoffs, you've got 10 months where they didn't play any games. Now you're not going to have any fans. That might not impact some of the smaller market teams, but what I think it's going to feel like for a player is one of those late night games we sit up watching after a 4-hour rain delay, where it gets to be 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, and there's 35 people left in the ballpark. I think it's going to feel more like that, and it may feel like a combination between a major league season and what we have in the College World Series, which is a sprint to the finish. I think it's going to be fun. It's not going to be normal baseball, but it's better than the alternative.
It's going to be like a 4-hour rain delay, but in the middle of the day.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's better than anything right now.
It's better to finally see some sports returning to action, and we're so excited to see the baseball season get underway, which starts, by the way, July 23rd and 24th. Luke, thank you so much for taking some time to break it all down with me today. I'm Katie Johnston for CBS Local Sports.